Your dog or cat still suffers from itching, otitis, licking of paws, or unstable stools, even with natural food. The truth is that many owners make hidden mistakes within the BARF diet itself, and this may be sabotaging your pet's health without you realizing it. Based on real data, up-to-date veterinary practices, and thousands of success stories, this video is a definitive guide for owners who want to regain their pet's health smartly and responsibly. Watch till the end, because the last part of the video reveals the 7 pillars to control allergies and rebuild immunity with BARF. Subscribe to the channel now, and share it with those who live this challenge. Your pet deserves more than relief. He deserves balance and real health. If your dog or cat is already on the BARF diet, but still has itching, excessive licking of the paws, frequent ear infections, occasional vomiting, or intermittent diarrhea, perhaps you're overlooking a critical point: hidden food allergies, even within a natural diet. And no, it's not just about chicken intolerance or reactions to dyes, as many believe. The reality is much more complex, and when not understood, it can make owners abandon natural food thinking that it doesn't work. The truth is that the BARF diet, as natural and rich as it is not automatically hypoallergenic. Many ingredients with high nutritional value are also potential allergic triggers, especially when there is genetic predisposition, gut dysbiosis, or poor handling of the dietary transition. This means that the problem is not in the natural food itself, but in the way it is structured, in the selection of ingredients, and in the lack of control over critical variables. One of the main mistakes made by tutors is the belief that if it's natural, it's okay. But even prime meats like beef, chicken, or pork can cross-react if they're poorly stored, contaminated with hormone residues, or offered repeatedly without rotation. The same goes for frequently used vegetables. Pumpkin, carrots, chayote, and even spinach can cause reactions when the animal's immune system is dysregulated. The basis of allergy is always the same. The body identifies a protein as a threat and starts to fight it. In dogs and cats with a genetic predisposition, this reaction can be silent for weeks until the first signs appear: itchy ears, redness in the belly, hair loss in localized areas, intense flatulence, or compulsive licking of the paws. In many cases, owners confuse these symptoms with fleas or heat, delaying the correct diagnosis. And when BARF feeding is poorly planned with excessive repetitions, this only aggravates the condition. Another point ignored is the impact of the gut microbiota. An unbalanced gut, whether due to a history of dry food, overuse of antibiotics, or poor transition, is more vulnerable to developing inflammatory reactions to food. The leaky intestinal wall allows protein fragments to escape into the bloodstream, and this is read by the immune system as a threat. The result? An inflammatory cycle begins that can last for months. Therefore, every pet owner with allergies should consider a phase of food exclusion with reconstruction of the intestinal flora. This exclusion, unlike fasting or detoxing, consists of eliminating all suspicious proteins and maintaining a minimal diet with a single type of new meat, preferably an exotic or never-used protein such as rabbit, duck, wild boar, or whitefish. This protein should be offered alone for at least 21 days with absolute control of ingredients and monitoring of symptoms. No vegetables, fruits, supplements, or snacks should be introduced during this period. Only filtered water, the only source of protein, and a strict monitoring of clinical signs. If the symptoms cease, it is confirmed that there was a food allergy. The next step is to reintroduce the previous ingredients one by one with a minimum spacing of 5 days, observing reactions to each new inclusion. Important: true allergies are different from intolerances. While allergy is an aggressive immune response, intolerance is just a digestive reaction due to enzyme deficiency. A classic example: a cat may vomit after ingesting chicken liver, not because of an allergy, but because the food was too raw or too much. A dog that has otitis every time it consumes beef, even well prepared, probably suffers from type 1 or the third-eye food hypersensitivity, a deeper and longer lasting process. It is also necessary to look at kids more carefully. Because they are highly nutritious, liver, kidney, and spleen are common in the BARF diet, but they are also potent sources of fat-soluble vitamins, heavy metals, and accumulated waste, especially when they come from animals raised on a large scale. Frequent ingestion, without rotation, can overload the animal's own liver and trigger inflammatory responses similar to allergies. In the bones? Many believe that because they are part of the nature of the diet, they are harmless. But poorly preserved bones, stored for too long or offered with excess fat, adhered to, can also cause organic rejections and gastroenteritis. In animals with sensitivities, even the calcium extracted from eggshells can be an irritant if not well processed, crushed, and dosed. The secret is in balance, offering fresh bones of known origin with an amount adjusted to the stage of life and body weight. Another important point: allergies don't always come from food. Dust mites, pollen, cleaning products, perfumes, and even certain types of plastic in jars and toys can be the real villains. And when the tutor changes to BARF, but keeps these toxic elements in the environment, the inflammation persists. Natural food can help modulate the immune response and strengthen the body, but it does not cure what is caused by environmental factors. Therefore, the ideal is a complete plan. Eliminate external allergens, review the composition of the diet, and rebalance the intestine with professional help. While many owners focus only on the type of meat offered, there is one crucial point that goes unnoticed: the biochemistry of the ingredients and their individual inflammatory impact. This means that two animals can react completely differently to the same food. A golden retriever puppy can perfectly tolerate raw chicken, while an adult bulldog can develop chronic otitis with the same protein, even within a balanced and well-prepared diet. This is because the immune system of each pet reacts according to its history, genetics, and above all, its level of intestinal and metabolic balance. In this context, diet personalization becomes essential. And this is where many tutors who adopt BARF end up stumbling. When following generic menus, ready and not adapted to the animal's individual reality, it is common for adverse reactions to arise even with foods considered safe. The owner thinks he is doing everything right: raw meat, steamed vegetables, ground bones, but the symptoms persist. Itchy chin, discharge from the eyes, redness between the fingers, flatulence with a strong odor, all signs that there is something on the menu that is generating immune overload. A classic example is the recurrent use of pumpkin and carrots. Although they are vegetables rich in fiber and antioxidants, they are also sources of excess beta-carotene and fermentable carbohydrates. In animals with gut dysbiosis or sensitivity to FODMAPs, this can result in bloating, pasty stools, and inflammation of the colon. Another common mistake is the repeated supply of chicken breast, a lean meat, but highly exposed to antibiotics, hormones, and industrial waste in commercial production. Even when the chicken is organic, repetition without rotation makes the pet's body more susceptible to cross-reaction against the main protein. There's also an often overlooked detail: the hidden sources of allergens within the natural diet. For example, bovine bone marrow may contain traces of oxidized fat. Chicken heart, if not fresh, may contain altered myoglobin residues. Beef liver, when overcooked, loses the stability of vitamins and releases irritating compounds to the digestive system. All of this adds up to symptoms that don't seem to come from food, but are directly linked to it. In many cases, the owner believes that the pet is slowly improving, but in fact the body is only creating a compensation mechanism, and in parallel, creating a chronically inflamed internal environment. This is why the symptoms come and go, because the root of the problem has not been solved, only masked by an apparent temporary improvement. To get around this, the ideal is to structure a deep observation phase with 3 fronts. 1. Absolute simplification of the diet for 30 days with only one type of meat, one source of fat, and compatible bones. 2. Daily recording of clinical signs: fecal score, energy level, presence of licking, pruritus, eye or respiratory changes. 3. Environment free of perfumes, chemicals, and processed foods around. This period allows us to understand how the animal's body behaves when it is not being challenged by multiple stimuli. And it is at this point that many answers come to the fore. Most pets improve significantly when common ingredients such as chicken, carrots, beef liver, and certain low-cost supplements are excluded. The problem is not the ingredient itself, but the accumulation, the way it is prepared, and the metabolic moment in which it is offered. Another strategic point for the health of dogs and cats with allergies is the correct use of immunomodulatory supplements and natural nutraceuticals, such as quercetin, an anti-inflammatory flavonoid present in apples and onions, but offered in isolated form, extra virgin coconut oil in small amounts to help balance the microbiome, and freeze-dried bovine colostrum, which provides immunoglobulins capable of repairing mucous membranes and strengthening intestinal barriers. It is also essential to consider the variation in body temperature and seasonal factors. In times of excessive heat, the diet should contain ingredients with refreshing properties, such as white fish and vegetables with a high water content. In the cold, it is important to intensify the supply of good fats, natural collagen, and vegetables rich in vitamin C, such as red pepper, cooked, and small amounts of freeze-dried acerola. This seasonal logic accompanies the physiological functioning of the animal and helps keep the immune system adapted to changes in the environment. For cats, the scenario is even more sensitive. Many owners make the mistake of repeating the same protein for months due to the difficulty of accepting new flavors. However, this habit favors the development of late reactions, especially in long-haired cats or cats with a predisposition to dermatitis. In addition, many supplements used for dogs, such as turmeric or propolis, are not well tolerated by felines and can lead to liver toxicity or gastrointestinal changes. Another critical aspect is the way the tutor interprets the clinical signs. For example, softer stools on some days don't necessarily mean the food is wrong. It could just be too much fat or too little soluble fiber. On the other hand, very hard stools with difficulty in elimination indicate excess bone or lack of intracellular hydration. On the other hand, the sudden increase in licking of the paws or itching behind the ears are alerts that some component of the diet, or the environment, is exceeding the threshold of immune tolerance of the body. Allergy is not just about taking an ingredient out of the diet. It's about understanding how the organism responds, when it responds, and why it responds that way. And natural food, when well conducted, is one of the most effective tools to unravel this hidden map of pet health. As the tutor advances in his knowledge about natural food, it is natural for him to seek variety, creativity, and personalization in the pet's menu. But it is exactly at this point that many allergies begin to manifest silently. The introduction of superfoods, supplements, assorted vegetables, functional fruits, and even exotic ingredients may seem like a breakthrough, but without control and follow-up, it can turn the diet into a nutritional minefield. For example, ingredients such as chia, flaxseed, nutritional yeast, spirulina, or kefir, when offered in excess or without prior adaptation, can activate unexpected immune reactions. Chia and flaxseed, despite being rich in vegetable omega-3, are sources of mucilage and phytates that, in animals with intestinal sensitivity, aggravate colitis. Nutritional yeast, on the other hand, often used as a source of B vitamins, can cause dermatological inflammation if the pet has an intolerance to fungal protein. Kefir, on the other hand, requires a digestive system that is well adapted to residual lactose, and not all dogs and cats, even on natural diets, are ready for it. Another common misconception is the indiscriminate use of vegetable oils such as sunflower, soybean, or corn, with the intention of increasing calories or improving the coat. These oils are highly inflammatory, rich in unbalanced omega-6, and contribute to increased production of pro-inflammatory prostaglandins, which means more itching, more redness, more irritation. The ideal is to replace it with anti-inflammatory fat sources, such as extra virgin coconut oil in microdoses, purified fish oil, rich in EPA and DHA, or fat from pastured pork, always respecting the animal's individual dose. And we cannot forget the handling and storage of ingredients. Thawed and refrozen meats, vegetables stored for more than 5 days in the refrigerator, or poorly sanitized offal are potential sources of irritants. Although the food looks good to look at, internal cell degradation has already released biogenic amines such as histamine, putrescine, and cadaverine, compounds that, in animals with allergies, work as triggers for intense symptoms, including respiratory symptoms. In addition to food, the internal environment of the house plays a decisive role. Carpets that accumulate mites, plastic pots used for months, floor cloths with chemical disinfectants, and even artificial smells from candles and sprays are responsible for a series of allergic conditions misdiagnosed as food. This is because the immune pathway activated in the animal's body is the same. And the tutor, believing that the problem is in the diet, begins to exchange proteins, remove vegetables, change supplementation, without realizing that the villain may be under the couch. Therefore, one of the most effective guidelines for allergic pets is to apply the 3-by-3 protocol. 3 weeks of total exclusion diet, with new protein, no extras, no snacks. 3 fixed and controlled ingredients per week: protein, light fiber, good fat. 3 sources of environmental stress eliminated: plastics, chemicals, artificial smells. This type of approach allows you to observe the response of the animal's body cleanly without external interference. The tutor can finally understand whether the symptoms come from the food, the environment, or the combination of the two. Another extremely important and neglected factor is the emotional state of the animal. Dogs and cats subjected to constant stress, changes in the house, absence of the owner, fights between animals, intense urban noises, produce more cortisol, a substance that directly affects the immune response. In other words, a stressed pet is more likely to develop or aggravate allergic conditions, and this is not solved only with diet. The tutor needs to integrate natural food with environmental enrichment, a predictable routine, frequent eye contact, and a stable sleep routine. It is also at this point that the use of complementary therapies can bring significant advances. Herbal medicines, such as chamomile, valerian, and rosemary, as long as they are prescribed by holistic veterinarians, help reduce systemic inflammatory processes. The use of medicinal clay, baths with chamomile tea, and even controlled aromatherapy with pure lavender in diffusers, never applied directly to the animal, can create a faster recovery environment. Finally, it is necessary to remember that allergy is not an isolated event. It is the visible sign that the animal's immune system is overloaded, and the biggest mistake a tutor can make is to treat only the symptom with antihistamines, ointments, baths with corticosteroids, without understanding the root of the problem. Because every time a symptom is suppressed but the cause continues, the body finds a new way to express the imbalance. And the next sign can be more serious: pancreatitis, gastritis, chronic otitis, colitis, or even a sudden drop in immunity. Natural food is one of the most powerful tools to break this cycle, as long as it is used with discretion, science, and sensitivity. It's not about following a ready-made recipe, it's about observing, adjusting, keeping track of, and respecting the individuality of each dog or cat. Because, in the end, the best health protocol is the one that works for your pet, in its time and form. When the tutor begins to see the allergy as a warning sign, and not as a sentence, the care process is transformed. Because the truth is that there is no miracle diet, perfect protein, or universal supplement. What exists is an organism in search of balance, trying to respond to internal and external aggressions with the resources it has. And when these resources fail, the body warns: itchy, otitis, diarrhea, pain. It is up to the owner to listen to these signs before they become chronic diseases. And if you've come this far, it's because you understand that taking care of your pet's diet goes beyond following a table. It is a daily commitment to observation, patience, and constant adjustments. It is not a matter of complicating the process, but of understanding it in depth. And on this path, some pillars become indispensable for any tutor who faces allergies, even within a natural diet. 1. Intelligent protein rotation. The basis of allergic control is to avoid continuous exposure to the same antigens. This means alternating protein sources every 2 or 3 weeks, respecting the digestive acceptance of each animal. If the pet consumes only chicken for months, the immune system can develop hypersensitivity. Alternating with meats such as rabbit, duck, lamb, or white fish reduces this risk. The rotation should also include the bones, the giblets, and the types of fat used. 2. Efficient simplicity. The more ingredients, the more difficult it is to identify the cause of the reaction. Therefore, a simple menu with fresh and highly digestible foods is always safer than dishes made with many elements. Simplicity does not mean nutritional deficiency as long as there is planning. A simple rotating menu can be complete, balanced, and highly effective in preventing adverse reactions. 3. Specialized professional support. Veterinary nutritionists specialized in natural food are key players in this process. They analyze laboratory tests, interpret immune patterns, and adjust the diet in a personalized way. Investing in this follow-up is saving on medicines in the future and ensuring a longer and healthier life for the animal. 4. Complete clinical evaluation. Not all itching is a food allergy. Endocrine diseases, skin infections, mites, fungi, liver problems, and even tumors can manifest similar symptoms. Therefore, before removing or changing foods from the diet, the first step should always be a complete clinical consultation with blood, urine, feces tests, and if necessary, specific dermatological tests. Acting in the dark is wasting time and putting the pet at risk. 5. Re-education of the environment test. We have already seen environmental allergens are the great saboteurs of treatment. Changing plastic pots for ceramic or stainless steel, cleaning the house with vinegar and baking soda instead of industrialized products, eliminating incense and aromatic candles, letting the sun into the house, and avoiding fabric accumulation in rest environments. These simple measures drastically reduce exposure to irritating substances. 6. Intestinal reconstruction with live probiotics and natural prebiotics. The basis of immunity is in the intestine, and a healthy gut depends on a functional, stable, and varied microbiota. Fermented pet foods, soluble fibers from cooked vegetables, FOS, fructooligosaccharides, natural inulin, oat bran, green banana biomass, and specific veterinary supplements are effective strategies to rebuild this immune base. Without this reconstruction, every diet will continue to be seen as an agent of attack by the body. 7. Time and patience. Rebuilding an allergic organism takes time. It's not in a week or a month. The process can take 90, 120, even 180 days, with cycles of improvement, relapse, adaptation, and stabilization. The patience of the tutor is the most important link on this path. Because the pet's body needs constancy to understand that it is no longer in danger, that inflammation can cease, that the immune system can let its guard down. Allergy is not a fault of the body. It is a sign that it is trying to protect itself. When natural food is applied consciously, it becomes an instrument of deep healing. It does not mask symptoms, it reveals causes, and while it requires care, it offers transformative results. The skin lightens, the coat is reborn, the stool stabilizes, the breath changes, the energy returns, and above all, the animal regains tranquility, that quiet calm that only a healthy organism knows. If you are facing this challenge right now, know that you are not alone. Thousands of owners around the world have already overcome allergies in their dogs and cats based on simple, structured, and conscious changes. And you could be next. Start today with a small step. Simplify the diet, write down the symptoms, eliminate the excesses. The path to health begins by listening, and your pet is already talking to you through their skin, paws, eyes, and feces. It is up to you now to listen carefully, adjust wisely, and act with love. Because the real care is not in exchanging the feed for raw meat. It's about taking responsibility for your best friend's health, day after day, meal after meal.